2016, I joined a travel company, a pretty well-known travel company, but also in the digital side, looking at booking flights, hotels, car hire in the digital space. The first three touch points or journey points have been purely digital, right? So it's enabling consumers to transact, engage with brands, with services, with products on digital platforms. And then 2020, I jump into food. So that's something that's not uniform, right? So a lot of people ask me why food? What made you choose this role, this transition in your career all of a sudden? And for that, we got to understand the journey of the organization that I'm with right now. So Olam's journey. Um, Olam is not your typical tech startup. It's a large B2B org. They are into agri commodities. They've got presence in 60 odd countries. They were established in 1989 in Africa, in Nigeria. Essentially, they own the entire supply chain for a lot of food that we consume as consumers. So the coffee that you get from Starbucks may have coffee beans that were procured by Olam. The chocolate that you eat, say from a Nestle, from a Mondelez, may have cocoa that Olam's produced and then supplied Mondelez, Nestle, etc. The dairy that you consume from any of the brands from Danone may come from Olam as well. There are many categories where Olam is market leader because it's been in the business for so long, 35 plus years, right? And through these years, the business has been growing really, really well. 2005, Olam got listed in SGX. The company is headquartered out of Singapore. Um, in around mid 2010s, the company started realizing that they have to build new growth engines, right? So past 30 years, business has been doing really well, growing really fast. And now they sort of understood that or realized that we got to grow more legs in the business because this business, the existing business, might not be growing as fast as it used to in the next few years. The obvious way to go ahead was digital channels, so e-commerce, low end barriers to entry. You can create your own platforms, move ahead. Of course, from a consumer point of view, consumers are moving online as well. Olam being B2B in nature, 2016 they launched various initiatives in the B2B space. So I'm there in B2B offline. I'm going to move B2B online. It's the easiest thing for me to do, transition. Um, and then come to 2020 because of the successes that they started seeing in all of these initiatives in B2B. So the company has now decided to go into B2C. That is direct to consumer, create new brands. So if I'm supplying, say, coffee beans to a Starbucks, I can also have my own ready to drink or single origin coffee direct to the consumer, right? And that is what Olam is thinking right now. So my transition from tech companies in telecom, e-com, travel to food then becomes easier to understand because the last two bits in Olam's journey are basically e-commerce. That's where tech comes in. That's where digital comes in. That's where my expertise comes in as well. And that's how I landed this current role in Olam. I look at e-commerce initiatives in APAC, both B2B, B2C. Essentially, I'm responsible for P&L for these initiatives. I look at investments, I look at revenues and profits coming on from these initiatives, of course. Today, I'm going to be talking about one of the initiatives that Olam has in the B2C space. It's sort of the first initiative that Olam started off with. It's live in Singapore only right now. We went live at the beginning of this year. So it's been around 7-8 months that we're live in Singapore. And this is a purely new brand. So nothing of this sort existed last year. We built it from scratch. So 0 to 1, like I mentioned. Okay, so imagine you're like the CEO, right? And you're tasked with setting up a brand. What do you do? How do you start off? It's like an empty sort of a canvas, and you gotta kick things off, right? This is how we approach things, right? So you start with pure research, and you got to do a lot of it. So I think the entire 2020, the entire 2021, we spent on doing a lot of research. And three parts to it, right? Number one is market research. So you look at external sort of data. You look at geopolitical markets. You look at which markets are really interesting to move into. You look at consumer trends, etc. All of that falls in the external side of things. So consumer preferences, industry trends, how big is a particular market, what is the sort of competition. So just for an example, if you're going into alternative meats, then you know that Beyond and Impossible are already competitions in big competitors in the US market and in other markets as well, right? At the same time, you look at internal data as well. So from an Olam perspective, what are our strengths? Have we got some existing geo presence in certain markets? Or is it completely new? I've got no staff, no office, nothing. I have to build everything from scratch. We also looked at things like what is the supply chain strength that we have in category. So Ola might be really strong in things like say snacks, nuts, etc. Might not be super strong in dairy. So does it make sense to go into finished dairy products from a B2C perspective? Might not. But snacks or nuts, etc. maybe yes. And then you got to also look at cannibalization across businesses. So Olam is a large conglomerate. It's got many businesses. If I launch a B2C brand, is it impacting other business streams that I have in terms of revenue, in terms of some sort of cannibalization, in terms of even issues with partners that exist in our current streams, right? So those are the two basic sort of distinctions I make in terms of research. One is external, looking at things that are happening from a consumer point of view, from a market point of view, and the other point is internal. What are we strong at? What are our weaknesses, etc. And then you got to simply match these two, right? So ideally, you want to enter into a space where you are strong at, so you're capitalizing on your strengths, and you got to move into areas or a space where there is enough revenue or enough business to be made externally. The market is big enough. There is a large consumer segment that sort of your product or your service appeals to. There were some clear key takeaways that we had from a lot of the research that we did, right? And these are some important ones that we took note of, and then we rolled things out from there. So I've only listed a few, not all the key takeaways that we sort of received from research. Number one is consumers are becoming increasingly experimental across categories. So as disposable incomes in various countries increase, consumers are becoming increasingly experimental in terms of what they want to try out, what experiences they want to go for, etc. And this applies to food as well. Food is probably the last category that sort of got impacted this way. But you can see this with things that I talked about in terms of, alternative meats, alternative proteins, etc. The second point is all natural and sustainable food demand is an all-time high, right? Especially, I think, amongst the millennials and Gen Zs, they really care about and want, number one, sustainable practices across the supply chain. And they really care about consuming natural products. So less of processed sort of products in terms of food, in terms of what they put in their bodies, and more of natural products. Of course, the third point has been there since like the last 10 years. Consumers are searching more and more, consuming more and more online, on online platforms, right? Again, food is probably the last category to be disrupted this way. Other categories like travel or consumer appliances, home decor, etc., have already been disrupted. There are multiple players. But this has been accelerated during COVID, last 2 years, for sure. Consumers are definitely choosing online platforms to engage with brands, food brands, and also transact or purchase food, right? The last thing is consumers are willing to pay more for brands that do good. So purpose-driven brands, especially in the food side of things. If I'm paying say X dollars for a bag of chips, I would pay X plus something if those chips are healthier, if those chips or the organization does something good for the farmers that produce the potato, etc. Gen Zs are super glued into this point in terms of being really advocates for brands which do good for the overall planet in general, right? These were the key takeaways for us as an organization. And from here on, we rolled out our sort of brand, right? This is some real data that came out of our research. So in terms of information sources for food and beverages, what are the sort of discovery channels? And you'll see that there are those traditional discovery channels which are always prevalent, right? Like if you've seen some brand in the store, then you get like high discovery if you've seen TV advertisements, print advertisements, etc. But switch to the millennials, and then you'll see online channels like online search, social media, etc. start becoming really, really dominant. In fact, in the total, the entire consumer base, the online channels are not bad at all. They do come across in top 5, top 6, etc. So online is becoming super, super important, even for food. And like I said, I think it's the last sort of category to sort of get disrupted by this. And on the right hand side, of course, you've got your platforms. Everyone knows about them, the usual Meta platforms, Google platforms, etc. And so, out of our research, we zeroed down on 4 sort of segments. This is only Singapore. We did this research in a couple of markets, but I'm giving only Singapore data over here. I've also blanked out what these segments are. We'll call them 1, 2, 3, 4. And we sort of peg them in 2 axes, right? Number one is consumers who want to advocate for brands who do good. So strive to be green is an example for that. You do well for the planet, etc. You are more green as a company or a brand. And then on the y-axis, it's willingness to pay higher for a purpose brand, right? So do good, and then consumers are willing to pay high for you as a brand. Segment 4, you can see is clearly out there. The other 2 interesting segments are segment 2 and 3, right? So segment 2, for example, not very big on green planet, etc. But I'm willing to pay for a brand which basically does something, is a purpose brand, right? But I don't probably do things like use recycled products or use less plastic and all of that. Segment 3, on the other hand, I do all of that. I'm going to be making a difference myself, but I'm not willing to pay more for a brand that does this. I will probably pay market price. So segment 4, of course, for us, the best in terms of business. Segment 2 second, and segment 3 the third. So there are significant segments is what I want to talk about in each market. Singapore being a smallish market also has significant segment sizes conforming to this. In one of the slides, I showed some channels that consumers are getting aware of in terms of discovery, right? So we saw that digital channels really are on top over there. And so that determined our marketing approach as well. So typical tech organization, and the approach was to function just like a tech organization would do in other categories. The only difference is we are in food, right? So our marketing has got to be digital channel first. In fact, right now the marketing is digital channel only. We're not present on TV, we're not present on print, we're not present on out of home. It's only digital channels that we invest in. We also decided that we're going to be looking at high spends on awareness because we're a new brand. Of course, we got to move our awareness levels up, but we're going to be also supplementing it by performance. That is where digital performance marketing comes in. It's got to go hand in hand. It's not going to be traditional awareness marketing that we're going to be investing in. There's going to be a high focus on test and learn. Many of you might have heard about this. I've been a big proponent of agile and test and learn myself. And traditional organizations, it's a different approach. It's a new approach for them. But we took it on, and basically the marketing is going to be test and learn, heavily focused on optimizations. And the idea was also that because we're a new brand, we're investing a lot on awareness, we're not going to get a lot of ROIs right there in month 1, month 2. But over a period of time, we're going to start focusing on increasing ROIs. That's typical digital product revenue, etc. funnel, right? And we're going to follow that relentlessly. And so this is the sort of channel mix that came across, right? We're doing a lot of awareness in month 1, for example. We're focusing a lot on YouTube. We're focusing a lot on Meta channels. But even on Meta, say for example, Instagram, Facebook, we're focusing a lot on video. We're not focusing a lot on campaigns which give us a lot of traffic, a lot of conversions. No, we want to build our brand first. We want to make the consumers understand what we stand for, and over a period of time, we will optimize. We will move into conversions, and you'll see by month 3, month 6, the channel mix starts changing a bit. YouTube, for example, moves from a 60% to a 40%. It's still slightly on the higher side. Not typically performance, of course, because we are a new brand. It'll take some time for us to move that 40 down to maybe a 20 or 25. But we start focusing more and more on conversion or traffic sort of platforms, right? So we focus heavily on Google search and shopping. We focus heavily on Meta, on formats other than video. We also focus on other channels. So remarketing, etc., comes in place here. So that's the sort of channel mix that we are following right now, and we will continue to follow this year, the next year, increasing performance marketing as the months go by. So we're expecting awareness marketing to go down to around 25%, 30% by the end of the year. And then from then on, it remains stable in Singapore, whereas we start focusing on other markets. So that's the sort of channel mix that we followed, that we will follow as well going forward. Now, all of this channel mix, etc., is sort of a waste if I don't have a lot of data. And that is the reason why there is a brand.com. That is the reason why you'll see a lot of consumer companies are also launching their brand.coms. Any sort of brand, right? And the question for us was whether we enable e-commerce functionality on this or just have this as a platform which is more informational in nature. So informational in nature in the sense consumers are not going to be able to purchase anything. They will only be able to see what brands we have, what are our products, etc. Right? We went ahead with an e-commerce approach because, again, we are a new brand. We want to have as much data as possible. So why refoods.com or why a brand.com is simply because of one reason, and that is first-party data. We want data for our consumer data in our hands, right? So that we can use that data to optimize multiple things, to basically make that consumer journey as smooth as possible, and for us to basically invest in our business in the best possible way. We want to have that control of our data. So, and all of these pointers are possible because we've got that data from our customer. So we got to be looking at optimizing marketing channel mix. If I don't have data on what audience is coming to my platform from various channels and which sort of audience segment is effective, which is not, I'm not going to be able to optimize the marketing channel mix. It's going to be a black box. So refoods.com or brand.com enables that. I also understand what categories products are performing well, what is not performing well. Let's go ahead to the drawing board and launch many more such products if a particular category is performing well or consumers have certain appeal to it. And let's put categories which are not performing or products which are not performing into the bin. I also do understand then in terms of what are the platform strengths and shortfalls. From a consumer point of view, maybe I don't want to interact or transact on brand.com. I just want it for informational purpose. And then that's how I understand this, right? I get real-time data in terms of, okay, consumers are coming onto my brand.com, reading a lot about my brand, understanding what products I have, but they're not transacting. They just don't want to transact. So, okay, clear and simple. And that is why we start off with a platform with e-commerce as a functionality enabled. I also understand things like product cross stickiness. So if my consumer is buying, say, for example, coffee, he or she also buys breakfast cereals. And so then there is a cross stickiness across products categories. And I understand that through brand.com. From a marketing perspective, I get to say the right message to the right audience or the right consumer at the right time, right? These three things come in sync when I have everything in control: my platform, my messaging, and my channel. So I decide in terms of where my consumers will hear what about me and at what time. And lastly, of course, improve the performance of other channels. So traditional food company and traditional channels in Singapore, for example, you've got your Fair Price as your large sort of retail chain. You've got cold storage as well. You've got Cheers, you've got Giant, etc., etc. And then you've got the online side of things. You've got Lazada, you've got Redmart, and all of that. I can use my brand.com to inform people that we are present in a Redmart or we are present in a cold storage, and thereby improve the performance of other channels. So all of these are like benefits to brand.com only because we've got data. No other channel will offer me the amount of data that brand.com would offer me, and that is why this becomes important. So I'm going to show you two commercials that we launched. This is the result, of course, of the amount of research that we did, of all the findings, and then we moved ahead with the brand, right? So this is sort of the final product. This is only Singapore. Again, this has only been there in the market for 8 months now. So this is something that we launched in Singapore in digital marketing channels, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, etc. If you guys are in Singapore, you guys might have seen this in various channels, right? This is another commercial. I'm not going to play this because there's no audio, but sort of says the same message. So you'll see various things in terms of similarities, in terms of positioning, in terms of takeaways that we got from research, all natural, sustainable, etc., and how that connects to our brand today. All of this is only digital, like I said. So there's nothing on TV, there's nothing on radio, there's nothing on print, no OOH, nothing of that sort. So it's truly a sort of B2C brand that we've built in the digital space. Right now, from a product category or assortment perspective, this is what it looks like. Right. So we launched with some sort of nut variants or snacking nuts, which are shown on the left. We moved to breakfast cereals. We moved to nut butters. We've got some exciting new products in terms of nut bites that we've launched recently. And the idea is to expand from here. Right. So this is essentially 0 to 1 in Singapore as a market. And going forward, of course, with the distribution points, we've got some physical distribution online and online presence as well. So we've got all of these distribution channels where we are presented right now within Singapore. And going forward, we're going to be going ahead with other markets in Southeast Asia also. Right. So this is sort of what I wanted to share with you in terms of a 0 to 1 approach, going ahead with research, and then applying those key takeaways to launching a particular brand and then scaling it from there. I hope this was interesting. I hope this was sort of useful. If there are any sort of questions that you have, I'm up for answering them right now. Oh,
okay. Any questions?
Oh, we've got a question.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
Okay, I have two questions. Well, when you were doing the research,
Yes.
because Olam was in multiple countries, right?
Yes.
And they wanted to start the B2C market.
Yes.
So why Singapore? Because
Yeah.
you can go anywhere.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
Singapore?
Yes.
That is the number one. Number two, you never mention anything about, since you're doing everything online. So I was hoping that to understand, what platform that you choose in terms of technology wise, like there are multiple e-commerce tools that you can use, for example, Shopify or Magento or BigCommerce,
Yes.
or you made a custom website,
Yes.
I wanted to understand the inventory management that you did
Sure.
in order to optimize the market since you've been in 8 months.
Sure.
So I wanted to understand that schematics if you can pitch into that.
Absolutely. So I'll go one by one. Couple of questions. So first thing, why Singapore? So we did this entire research across many markets. In fact, I think we had like around 8 markets that we did this research on across Southeast Asia, Europe, the US. US, of course, is like the largest market in terms of food, in terms of the overall addressable market, but it's very high on competition. There are, of course, other markets in Europe wherein consumers also tend to move very high on sustainability, on all natural and all of that. But the reason why we chose Singapore were because of internal strengths and because also Singapore is sort of the perfect pilot market for us. So Singapore is small as a market for sure in terms of the audience size, addressable market. But Olam is headquartered out of Singapore. So we've got a lot of presence here. We've got a lot of control in terms of how we can move inventory from the place of origin to Singapore. Singapore is a major port, of course. So that makes things easier from a logistics perspective. And like I mentioned, Singapore is a good test market in the sense that it has a good mix of people, which gives us a good indication whether our product is going or our brand is going to be successful in certain markets only, or is it a winner brand across all in Europe and US, etc. So we've definitely got plans to expand. Singapore is more of a test pilot market. We will expand to Southeast Asia right now, and then looking to expand into Europe and then US eventually. So that's why Singapore. The second question was marketing tech stack. So that's a long question as well. I did not want to go too deep into technicalities in this deck, right? And that is why overall strategy is what I presented. From a tech stack perspective, we are on Magento. The brand website is on Magento, right? There is a reason for that. Olam is like a large conglomerate, and we've got a strategic partnership with Adobe. So right now, the platform is Magento. We did Look at other platforms like Shopify, WooCommerce, BigCommerce, etc. But Magento it is right now. In terms of marketing automation, we've got multiple tools available. Across other projects or initiatives, we use tools like HubSpot, Salesforce, etc. But for we're using a player known as, or we are partnering with a player known as Dot Digital. They are a Magento integrated sort of marketing automation platform, right? At the same time, we use all of those essential analytics tooling that a typical startup would use. So for analytics, we use Google Analytics for sure. Of course, we use Google Ads and Facebook Business Manager for all of our execution. But we're trying to go lean as well. We're not like a large team, and the business is not huge, right? We just starting off. So as we expand, I think our marketing tech stack will also expand. Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Okay,
Yes.
great. Yeah, one question here.
Yeah. Hi. Very, very interesting presentation. Thanks.
Thank you.
My question was, it seems that you're very focused on digital channels. Although I saw on the last map you were quite present
Yes.
physically in Singapore.
Yes.
So how are you actually? So you have your e-com, and that's how you get some insights, I believe, on
Yes.
how a customer they shop. So how are you able actually to use those insights which are online to replicate or to improve the in-store
Offline.
shopping experience? It's quite different, right?
It is, absolutely it is. And there are definitely ways that we're looking at doing this. It's a tough cookie to crack for sure. This is offline. This is online to offline, right? Where consumer interactions, behavior, etc. also changes. But we get some data points 100%. So, for example, if I start, if I launch in 4 categories, or I've got 4 different products in a single category, and I start seeing the traction for 2 of them much higher than the others, then I already know that there is a higher acceptance for those 2 products versus the others. Right? So I start implementing things like inventory management, production, etc. And I also start managing things on the offline side of things in terms of the number of store faces that I get. So if 2 variants of my products do really well out of 4, I will request FairPrice or a cold storage to have 6 facings of those 2 instead of just maybe 2 facings of the other 2, right? Like in the sense that show those 2 products more to the consumers because there is a natural acceptance for it, especially right now. I talked about another point, which is cross-category behavior. So if someone purchases, for example, muesli or breakfast cereals and nut butter together, then I will inform my FairPrice or a cold storage counterpart as well that keep these 2 products together in the same aisle probably, because consumers are looking to buy these 2 products together, right? So it's better that they see these 2 products one after the other rather than my nut butter being somewhere at the other side of the store and my breakfast cereal being in some other aisle. So these are 2 examples, but there are many points that you can look at from an online to an offline sort of implementation. It is challenging though. No doubt, for sure. It is challenging. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No worries.
Yes.
Thank you. Very good presentation.
Thank you.
Yes.
So the question I have is more on the organization because
Sorry, more on the
company organization.
organization.
Yeah. So Olam is into commodity business, B2B
Yes.
company.
Yes.
Now you're launching B2C and a very focused digital approach.
Yes.
So it's a bit of, I mean, like a B2B company doing a B2C and digital.
Yes.
I mean, it's so you need a set of specialist people.
Yes.
And they have to do it in a new way.
Yes.
Versus a lot of unlearned things. And
What am I here for?
so that's so I'm just trying
I
to
understand.
ask you, how did you
Yes.
consciously build company had a structure
Yes.
like DBS as a bank,
Yes.
DBS Digital as a separate
Yes.
thing. Okay. How does it play? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
yeah.
So good question. Really, so focuses on organization dynamics, right? So absolutely right. In terms of Olam is a large organization. So assume or imagine that in the sea you have like a small sailboat or a motorboat and you're trying to turn, right? Super easy. Turn the rudder or whatever. Imagine that you're doing the same thing with like a tanker ship. So Olam is that tanker ship, right? It takes like a huge amount of time and a lot of effort to steer the ship, to move it from one direction to the other. It's been B2B offline predominantly. Now it's trying to move into the online side of things. Like I said, first they started off with B2B online. So that's the natural transition. You go from offline, you change only one variable. You're still on B2B. And once you started seeing successes in the B2B initiatives, you try to move B2C, because that's where the cream is. You're getting close to your consumers, right? End consumers. So definitely a challenge, but there is a strong buy-in from the CXO team. So they realize that this is super important, that we got to transform, and it is digital transformation that's actually happening on an organization level. And we've got the buy-in for that. And therefore, there is full support in terms of changing, tweaking structures as in how we want. We've got some support in terms of operating like an independent startup, even though we are an entity within the larger group. So many factors at play. The short answer, definitely challenging again. It'll take a couple of years for the organization to become fully digital, to become really strong in B2C. But this is 0 to 1, like I mentioned, right? So yeah.
Okay, we have one more.
Yes.
Let's be the last one for
Yes.
this session.
Hey.
Okay.
I've
two
got
more.
9 seconds on the timer. 7, 6.
It's okay if we go for lunch later. No problem.
Hi.
Hello, hi.
Hi, so great presentation as everyone said.
Thank you.
I just wanted to ask, what are your thoughts on TikTok? Since you mentioned that you actually focus on Meta platforms,
Yeah.
and one of your target audience is Gen Z, since they're
Yeah.
more health focused, right?
Yes.
We all know that a lot of Gen Zs are on TikTok,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
conversions on TikTok are actually higher from Gen Zs as well.
Yes. Yes.
So I actually did like a quick research. I don't think you have a TikTok channel.
Yes.
Are you
No.
actually open to advertising on TikTok?
Yes.
That's my first question.
Sure.
My second question is actually, since you're a new brand, right? So you mentioned that you go a lot of people that go on your website, they actually look through, understand everything, but they don't purchase.
Yeah.
But maybe, in my opinion, it's because number one, they don't trust your brand as much.
Yes.
Because all your ads are from like brand ads.
Perfect.
So I think, are you open to influencer marketing?
Mm.
Because influencer marketing not only raise your awareness, preference, and trust, it also leads to a lot of lead generation as compared to brand ads.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on TikTok, and what are your thoughts on influencer marketing?
Difficult questions, actually. You got to increase that timer a bit more, yeah, Andrew. Okay, so again, one by one. We've not advertised on TikTok, correct? Absolutely correct. We don't have a channel as well. The reason behind that, the logic from the team was that we wanted to focus on awareness creation first, then consideration. So moving down the funnel from a marketing point of view, right? So awareness, consideration, then purchase. So first awareness, and awareness through digital channels. So video as a platform, YouTube, Facebook, Meta platforms, right? We did not focus on TikTok, and it is an important channel. We do realize that, especially for Gen Z audiences. I think we're also aware that influencer marketing is sort of genuine marketing, and it is big on TikTok. So the idea is to move on channels like TikTok for sure. In fact, we will look at doing some influencer marketing across Meta platforms as well. And that's when TikTok comes in also. But I think the plan for that is now, after 6 months. So once we've created enough awareness, we will move into increasing consideration for our brand or trust for our brand. Because right now the idea was only to inform people that we are there as a brand present in the market, and this is a choice that you have. And now the idea would be to convince the people why you should choose us. So consider us more or trust us more. So TikTok definitely an important channel and something that we will focus on. But I think from a marketing funnel point of view, it is the next stage for us, which we should be starting to work on right now, by the way. Okay, so that was TikTok. And your second question also was around influencer marketing, right? So absolutely correct. And like I mentioned, I think it will come in more from how do I say, from a consideration point of view for us. In the awareness stage, we wanted to really focus on reach and frequency numbers. Influencer marketing typically would not give us strict numbers on reach and frequency both, especially frequency, I think. Yeah. So maybe reach, but not so much frequency. So go ahead with, so that was the logic for us, right? So go ahead with campaigns on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, which are reach and frequency, RNF campaigns, so that we know we're reaching this much audience. We know we're reaching them 3 times in a week or 3 times in a month or whatever it might be. But yes, going forward, 100%, we got to activate those channels. So if you look at my marketing media mix that I showed, there is a slide or a small section which is others, right? that is going to include, and that is going to increase, and it's going to include things like influencer marketing, etc. over a period of time. The idea is that the awareness bit starts dropping and the consideration and conversion bit starts increasing now that we've been present in the market for a couple of months already. I hope that answers your question.